Pass me the Great Pagoda Art scroll. It won't affect Sister Lingxi, right? Although Chen was quite tempted by the complete version of the Great Pagoda Art, he still remained calm and asked, as he feared Lingxi might end up doing something that would hurt herself for his sake. Such power, even if obtained, would make him uncomfortable and unhappy. Lingxi smiled and gently shook her head, warmth shining in her beautiful eyes. Don't worry, this is something Aunt Jing entrusted to me. You don't trust me, but you have to trust Aunt Jing, right? Chen nodded and thought for a moment before speaking again. How about I also pass the Great Pagoda Art scroll to Sister Lingxi? He had some reservations about Lingxi cultivating the scroll. Although neither he nor his mother saw Lingxi as a servant, the scroll was inevitably suppressed by the Yang scroll, and Chen didn't want to use it in a way that would make Lingxi uncomfortable. Lingxi shook her head once more and smiled brightly. No need. I know what you're thinking. Don't worry, I won't overthink things. Besides, not everyone can cultivate the Great Pagoda Art scroll. It requires a specific bloodline. I don't have the bloodline of that clan, so cultivating the complete version of the Great Pagoda Art would not be a good thing for me. All right, then I'll leave it to you, Sister Lingxi. Hearing this, Chen gave up the thought and eagerly asked, Shall we start now? Lingxi rolled her eyes at him. Why are you in such a hurry? You've only been cultivating for 3 months. You should rest and adjust yourself first. We'll start tomorrow. Chen grinned, nodded, and said, Okay, I'll head back to the freshman district and come see you tomorrow. Lingxi lightly bit her red lip and softly said, Luo Li isn't in the freshman district either, so no one will be there to take care of you. You should rest here today. I'll have Xun'er help you set up a room. As she spoke, her fair face turned slightly red. Clearly, she had some cleanliness habits and was rather resistant and cold toward men. Even when the Grand Song Academy headmaster and others needed to see her, they only transmitted messages outside the courtyard and never entered. She had never invited anyone inside. Over the years, Chen was the only man who had entered her courtyard, and the idea of giving him a room to stay in was something she had never considered before. But when facing Chen, she was clearly different from how she treated others. His bright and clear eyes seemed to lower her defenses. Maybe it was because of Aunt Jing, but she also realized that she genuinely enjoyed their time together, chatting and feeling a sense of warmth and relaxation. Chen froze for a moment, hesitating. Wouldn't that be inappropriate? It didn't matter much for him, but Lingxi was such a stunning beauty. Although she was quite mysterious and rarely showed herself at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, longtime students still knew of her existence. There had even been many who considered themselves outstanding and tried to pursue her, but it had always ended in failure. After all, she was so impressive for her age that she had become an elder at Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Even the Grand Song Academy headmaster had to give her respect, so it was clear that her standards were extraordinarily high. How could a group of brash young students ever catch her eye? Lingxi shot him a glance, her face firm. What's wrong with an older sister looking after her younger brother? Seeing Lingxi's insistence, Chen could only scratch his head and agree. Over the years, Lingxi had always been alone. Although she appeared cold and aloof, he suspected she must feel quite lonely inside. Now that she had someone she trusted and cared for, it was a good thing to spend more time with her. Lingxi saw that Chen had agreed and smiled, a radiant smile that made the surrounding flowers by the bamboo house seem pale in comparison. In the hazy spiritual energy world, it was eerily silent. In such a place, even the wind seemed to be frozen under the overwhelming spiritual pressure. The entire world appeared dull and heavy. At this moment, in a valley within the spiritual energy world, spiritual liquid flowed down the mountain, pooling into a vast spiritual liquid lake. A soft mist rose from the lake, making the area seem like an ethereal paradise. Waves of terrifying spiritual energy radiated from the lake. The entire lake was formed by pure spiritual energy. The liquid was as heavy as 1,000 pounds, enough to crush mountains into dust. At the edge of the lake, a clear sound of water echoed as the spiritual liquid parted. A graceful and enchanting figure emerged from the lake. Her long hair, as dazzling as the Milky Way, spread out across the water, shining brightly. Beneath the cascading hair was a delicate and flawless body, like lamb-fat jade. The spiritual liquid dripped down her smooth skin, creating ripples in the lake. Though most of her body was submerged in the water, the perfect contours were still visible. The girl's firm chest and the breathtaking curves of her snow-white cleavage were enough to dazzle any man. However, such a beautiful scene was not for the eyes of any man. As the only one lucky enough to witness, it was not present at this moment. Luo Li raised her exquisite face, releasing a faint fragrance. Her skin, as white as jade, now flushed with a soft red, a result of the immense pressure of the spiritual liquid she was absorbing in her cultivation. Luo Li, you've managed to endure for a full 3 days, a gentle voice suddenly called out from the side. Luo Li turned her head and saw Su Xian, who was also submerged in the lake, her body as perfectly sculpted as her own. Su Xian's curves and snow-white figure were enough to make anyone's nose bleed. Su Xian gazed at Luo Li with a smile, her beautiful eyes sweeping over Luo Li's figure before offering a light compliment. Though the two had been cultivating together these past days, each time she saw Luo Li's perfect body, Su Xian couldn't help but praise her. Luo Li was truly a girl whose beauty, figure, and temperament were all flawless. Senior Su Xian, you've also endured quite a bit, Luo Li replied with a soft smile. I can only last 1 day at most. But I heard that Shun Songxing and Li Xiantong over there managed 2 days. However, none of them can match you, Su Xian said, shaking her head. The lake here was filled with spiritual liquid, incredibly heavy, and they needed to submerge themselves at the lake's bottom, enduring the weight of several mountains during their cultivation. Under such conditions, it was hard to last for long. They had to leave the bottom every now and then to rest, or their bodies wouldn't be able to withstand the pressure. These past few days, Luo Li had shown remarkable endurance. No one could have imagined that this seemingly fragile girl would possess such resilience. Su Xian knew very well that after reaching one's limit, even staying another minute at the lake bottom would drive a person crazy due to the overwhelming pressure. But no one had expected that Luo Li could endure for 3 full days. This achievement was something even Shun Songxing and the others couldn't compare to. Of course, they weren't cultivating in the same lake. At this moment, Shun Songxing and the others were in a different spiritual liquid lake several miles away. Luo Li smiled without saying a word, gently rubbing her jade-like skin, reddened from the lake's intense pressure, as she thought about how Mu Chun was doing with his cultivation. It must have been over 3 months now, right? Although cultivating within the North Song Gate was extremely harsh, she knew Mu Chen's training would be no easier than hers. As she thought about this, the girl bit her red lips lightly and said to Su Xian, Senior Su Xian, I'll go back to cultivating for a while. You're going back again? Su Xian exclaimed. She swam closer to Luo Li, her brows furrowing slightly. You're being too reckless with your training. You just came up, and now you're going down again? You'll wear yourself out. Back in the North Song Gate, there was a senior who couldn't handle it and nearly became a cripple. Senior Su Xian, don't worry. I know my limits, Luo Li replied softly. Why push yourself so hard? Su Xian said helplessly. She never expected Luo Li to be so determined when it came to cultivation. The past few days, Shun Songxing and his group had been greatly affected by her. As men, they couldn't stand the fact that Luo Li was able to endure longer than them, so they were all biting their teeth and cultivating desperately to catch up with her. Su Xian couldn't fully understand why Luo Li pushed herself so hard. She could sense that Luo Li wasn't the type of girl who cared much about strength. In fact, she was easy to please. Yet, despite her nature, when it came to cultivation, she was exceptionally focused and determined. Luo Li smiled. She could easily share the matters of the Luo God clan with Su Xian. The responsibility on her shoulders was immense. The billions of people in the Luo God clan were waiting for her, their future queen, to save them. And he told her that he would become a world-shaking powerhouse, standing before her to shield her from all the storms and hardships. For him, she always believed in him, but she understood that the path to becoming an unparalleled powerhouse was filled with thorns, enough to cut a person to pieces. She liked Mu Chen's smile, full of confidence, which made her feel inspired, but she was a little afraid that the thorns on the road to becoming a great powerhouse would gradually wear away the smile she cherished. Therefore, she also needed to work hard. If her strength could improve by just a little, Mu Chan would have it a little easier as well. She was not the kind of girl who liked to watch the person she cared about make constant sacrifices for her while doing nothing herself. Mu Chen, I know you've endured a lot, but I will help you, because I like you so much. The next day, in the elegant and quiet bamboo house, Mu Chen sat cross-legged on the soft bed, his eyes closed, breathing in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. After a night of quiet cultivation, he felt even more refreshed. The pressure from the 3 months of hard training in the Thunder Domain had been completely eliminated. Tap tap. During his meditation, a crisp knock sounded from the door, and then the door was pushed open. A little head peeked in, with 2 cute ponytails. Her black eyes looked at Mu Chen on the bed, and she called out in a crisp voice, Mu Chen Gij, wake up. Lingxi Jiejio is asking you to come out. Mu Chen opened his eyes, and seeing the adorable little girl at the door made him feel even lighter. He smiled, flipped off the bed, walked to the door, and gently rubbed the little girl's head. Then, seeing her pout, he stepped outside. In the yard, Lingxi was standing gracefully, her long black hair like a waterfall, stunningly beautiful. It seems you've rested well. Lingxi smiled as she noticed Mu Chen's refreshed appearance. Follow me. We're going to the place where you last practiced. It's connected to the only 8th-level spirit gathering array of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Although the energy inside doesn't match that of the 8th-level array, it's definitely stronger than the other 7th-level arrays. Mu Chen nodded with a smile, following Lingxi deep into the mountains. Then, their figures moved, and they appeared on a mountain peak surrounded by spiritual mist. They sat down cross-legged. Lingxi gently grasped a strand of her green silk hair, and her delicate face turned serious. She spoke softly. Mu Chen, the Great Pagoda Art is the most fundamental cultivation technique of Aunt Jing's clan. It's extremely difficult to master. Though you share a bloodline with Aunt Jing, that doesn't guarantee you'll succeed in cultivating both the yin and yang volumes. During the cultivation process, I can't be sure what will happen, but you must promise me that if anything goes wrong, you'll stop immediately. Don't force it. Mu Chen looked at Lingxi's serious face and nodded solemnly. Seeing this, Lingxi's jade hand lightly clasped, and a seal formed. A faint white light began to gather in her palm. The light carried a chill, similar to moonlight. Gradually, the light solidified into a white light tower, which shone with a strange, ethereal glow. Mu Chen looked at the familiar white light tower in surprise. It looked just like the pagoda formed inside him, though the colors were different, and the energy fluctuations were distinct. If the pagoda inside him was domineering and fierce, then the white light tower in Lingxi's hand seemed softer and more ethereal. Focus your mind, Lingxi commanded. Mu Chen's mind sharpened, and his eyes slowly closed. Lingxi's long fingers suddenly pointed, and the white light tower shot toward her fingertip, then gently pressed against Mu Chen's forehead. The light surged into his mind like a torrent. Boom. As the white light surged into Mu Chen's mind, it felt as though a thunderous roar exploded in his brain. A surge of obscure, unknown information rushed in like a tidal wave, transforming into mysterious and intricate cultivation mantras. The pagoda has yin and yang. Yin and yang harmonize, creating the Great Pagoda. Ancient, mystical chants seemed to echo in Mu Chen's mind. The sound of the Sanskrit chant seemed to echo for a long time, yet it also felt as though it lasted only a moment. When the sound finally faded, Mu Chen's mind cleared once more. He pondered for a long while, recalling the complex incantations in his mind. After a considerable amount of time, his hands began to slowly form the seal. This time, the sealing method was slightly different from the usual when cultivating the Great Pagoda Art, but there was still a sense of familiarity, as if all paths led to the same goal. Bang! As Mu Chen slowly formed the seal, the white light tower, which had been previously injected into his body by Lingxi, trembled and cracked open. A fine stream of white light rippled out, flowing into Mu Chen's meridians. It was a kind of spiritual energy, but this energy carried a chilling aura, like moonlight spilling down, moving through Mu Chen's meridians. Buzz buzz. As the white spiritual energy circulated through Mu Chen's meridians, he noticed that his own spiritual energy started to stir restlessly, as if drawn by an irresistible force, trying to break free and devour the white light. Calm your mind. condensed the Yin seed with the incantations. Just as Mu Chun was slightly startled by this sudden change, a soft command rang in his mind, causing his heart to tremble. He hurriedly suppressed the agitation in his spiritual energy and focused his mind, guiding the white light to flow rapidly along the meridian paths dictated by the earlier incantations. As the white spiritual energy moved through his body, it became smaller and smaller, yet its brightness increased. Mu Chun could also feel that with each cycle, he gradually gained control over the white spiritual energy. The chill that accompanied it was like ice, keeping his mind in a state of clarity. Condense. When the white spiritual energy had shrunk to its limit, Mu Chun's spirit sharply commanded. The white light burst forth, and when it faded, a small white light quietly hovered, like a seed. Mu Chun secretly breathed a sigh of relief. This was the first step. Only by condensing the Yin seed could he truly merge the Yin and Yang volumes of the Great Pagoda Art, allowing him to cultivate spiritual energy with a perfect balance of Yin and Yang. The divine soul, seated in the Qi Sea, raised its small hand and gently summoned the white light, which immediately shot through the meridians and directly entered the Qi Sea. It then floated before the divine soul, spinning gently. The divine soul exhaled a puff of white mist, then formed a seal with its small hand. However, this was not the usual Yang volume seal of the Great Pagoda Art, but the Yin scroll seal it had obtained earlier. Boom! As the divine soul formed the Yin scroll seal, a powerful suction erupted from within Mu Chun's body. The dense spiritual mist that filled the air around him began to ripple, transforming into streams of spiritual light that surged toward him, continually entering his body. Circles of faint white light emanated from Mu Chun's body, giving off a somewhat Yin and cold feeling. This was a distinct fluctuation compared to Mu Chun's usual spiritual energy. Once these spiritual energies entered his body, they flowed through his meridians and were then refined into white spiritual energy, eventually being absorbed into the small white Yin seed floating before the divine soul, continuously strengthening it. In order to merge the two types of energy in his body, Mu Chun needed to bring them to equal levels. Otherwise, the white spiritual energy would become food for the black spiritual energy. Only when both sides were in balance would a perfect fusion be achieved. Thus, Mu Chun's task now was to nurture and strengthen this Yin seed. However, this would obviously take some time. Fortunately, Mu Chun still had 3 full months to absorb energy at a rapid pace, and he should be able to grow the Yin seed during this period. Outside, Lingxi watched Mu Chun greedily absorbing the spiritual energy from the heavens and earth. She gently nodded. It seemed that Mu Chun's Yin seed had already been successfully condensed. The next step was to strengthen it. With the vast spiritual energy released by the 8th grade spirit gathering array, this process should be accelerated. However, cultivating the Great Pagoda Art to completion would not be easy. Of course, all of this depended on Mu Chun. Right now, she still needed to make some preparations. Lingxi's beautiful eyes flickered as she gracefully rose to her feet. With a slight movement of her delicate body, she shot into the air. Swish! Elder Lingxi, here is what you need. The headmaster of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Tai Tsong, smiled at Lingxi, then waved his sleeve. Several beams of light shot toward her, floating before her. Upon closer inspection, within the light, there were strange objects resembling chessboards, tortoise shells, and other peculiar items. These objects seemed to be some form of special spiritual tools. While they lacked powerful offensive capabilities, they possessed unique abilities. Lingxi carefully examined the spiritual tools, then nodded gently and said softly, "Thank you, Headmaster. However, I might need your help during this period." Elder Zhu Tian and the others exchanged a glance, puzzled. After all, it was the first time they had seen Lingxi ask for their assistance since they had known her. Is it because of Mu Chun? Tai Tsong Headmaster smiled slightly, pointing to Mu Chun, whose immense spiritual energy was currently concealed beneath overwhelming waves of power. Lingxi nodded slightly. She hesitated for a moment before saying, "Mu Chun is cultivating a certain technique, but once he succeeds, it may draw the attention of some people. So, I need your help to set up a spiritual array to isolate him." Tai Tsong Headmaster and the others were stunned. who could be so powerful that they could detect someone simply cultivating a technique. This is something Aunt Jing entrusted to me. I hope the headmaster can fully cooperate, Lingxi said seriously, her delicate face solemn. Hearing the mention of Aunt Jing, Taizong and the others became more serious. The shock they had felt from Mu Chen's mysterious mother was still fresh in their minds. Since this was her request, they certainly wouldn't underestimate it. Rest assured, Elder Lingxi, Mu Chen is a student of our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Whatever the matter, we will do everything we can to help, Taizong headmaster said without further inquiry. From what they knew of Mu Chen's mysterious mother, there was likely a significant background behind him. But Taizong was not one to pry. He knew that some things, once learned, might be better left unknown. Lingxi smiled lightly in response and gave a graceful bow. Then I thank you all. In the deep mountains, the vast spiritual mist rolled through the land. Due to the overwhelming spiritual energy in the air, everything appeared blurry, even the mountain peaks barely visible in the fog. However, despite the obscurity, the enormous whirlpool above one of the mountains was unmistakable. The whirlpool, several hundred feet wide, absorbed the surrounding spiritual energy, which then spiraled down into the figure seated on the mountain peak. Mu Chen's form was obscured by the torrents of spiritual power. His body seemed like an endless abyss, greedily and crazily absorbing all the spiritual energy pouring into him. Over the past month, he had remained motionless, like a boulder, his absorption never ceasing. Even so, it seemed his cultivation showed no signs of stopping. This spectacle left many of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy students who had been watching in awe. Truly, Mu Chen was the most powerful student of their academy, and his cultivation alone had caused such a tremendous stir. While Mu Chen immersed himself in his cultivation, not far away, atop another peak, Lingxi fixed her gaze on his figure. She then raised her head and glanced at several distant mountain peaks. Each peak had a figure atop it, Headmaster Taizong and Elder Zhu Tian among them. Lingxi's delicate hand gently closed, holding a black chessboard the size of a palm. The chessboard flickered with mysterious patterns, emanating a unique energy. Lingxi's fingers traced the intricate patterns on the black chessboard. Then her beautiful eyes turned upward toward the sky. To the ordinary eye, the sky seemed normal, but in Lingxi's vision, she could see the rays of light extending from the sky. These rays intertwined, forming an enormous spiritual array. This array had consumed a month of her energy to set up. Lingxi exhaled a light breath, a weary look briefly crossing her face. She had not rested at all during the past month, dedicating all her time and energy to the array. The sheer workload had left her exhausted. Yet, despite her fatigue, she could not afford to rest. She knew how crucial Mu Chen's cultivation of the complete Great Pagoda Art was. Aunt Jing had told her in secret that the Great Pagoda Art was the foundational technique of her clan and extremely important. In the past, Mu Chen had only been cultivating the Yang scroll, which was harmless, but when the Yin and Yang scrolls fused, it would form the complete Great Pagoda Art. Although Lingxi's memories had been sealed in the past, she could still faintly sense the terror of that mysterious clan. It was a fear that originated from the deepest part of her heart. Even someone as powerful as Aunt Jing had been forced to leave Mu Chen due to it. Just how terrifying could that mysterious clan be? Lingxi did not believe she had the strength to protect Mu Chen if that clan came for him. Therefore, she could only do her utmost to keep Mu Chen from being discovered. No matter how terrifying that mysterious clan was, they could never sense Mu Chen, who was hidden by her shield, from such a distant place. Aunt Jing, don't worry. I will protect Mu Chen, Lingxi whispered, her jade-like hand tightening into a fist, her eyes filled with resolve. In the process of cultivation, time passed unnoticed like sand through the fingers. 2 months had quietly gone by. During these 2 months, Mu Chen had remained silent, continuously absorbing and refining the spiritual energy of heaven and earth. The mountain had been enveloped by a massive vortex of spiritual power, and Mu Chen's figure had disappeared, with vast waves of energy constantly radiating outwards. Anyone could feel that the spiritual power inside Mu Chen was far stronger now compared to 2 months ago. On a nearby mountain peak, Lingxi sat in meditation, her beautiful eyes closed. A gentle breeze ruffled her silky hair. On the peak, The overwhelming spiritual power seemed to ripple suddenly. Swish! Ling Shi's eyes snapped open in an instant, her delicate face serious as she gazed at the top of the mountain, her jade-like hand clenched tightly. Is yin and yang about to merge? She murmured to herself, her body tightening as she prepared to shield the area at any moment. At the same time, deep within Mu Chen, before his divine soul, the yin seed had grown to the size of a fist, glowing like a pearl. It contained a vast, chilling power. This was the result of 2 months of absorbing spiritual energy. It's almost time. Mu Chen's voice echoed in his mind. Suddenly, his divine soul's mouth opened wide, gently inhaling. The yin seed, like a pearl, transformed into a streak of white light and shot into his divine soul. Buzz! The moment the yin seed was consumed, dazzling white light surged from within Mu Chen's body. After the white light, a domineering black light followed. The two lights intertwined, causing Mu Chen's divine soul to turn black and white, creating an eerie appearance. A boundless surge of spiritual power spread from his divine soul, filling every corner of his body. On the mountaintop, Mu Chen's eyes snapped open, and from the top of his head, spiritual light erupted, a pillar of light shooting into the sky. His black and white divine soul rose toward the heavens, its mouth opening to inhale. The vast spiritual mist in the air immediately turned into a torrent and was absorbed into his body. The black and white divine soul hovered in midair. It extended a small hand and gently cupped its palms as if holding the sun and moon in its grasp. Whoosh! Whoosh! The black and white light quickly gathered between its palms, gradually forming a yin-yang disc. The black and white energies chased each other within, like the yin-yang fish, and a massive, strange wave of energy spread throughout the world. As the yin-yang disc took shape, below, deep within Mu Chen's body, countless light spots suddenly appeared. These light spots connected, forming the shape of a tower. Boom! An ancient bell-like sound echoed, as if it had traveled through time from the distant past, resonating clearly from within Mu Chen's body. Circles of light appeared behind him, and within them, a black light tower about 100 feet tall slowly took shape. This black tower was similar to the previously seen pagoda, but on its exterior walls, the ancient golden dragon pattern flickered with small golden flames. These flames were minuscule, but they made the faces of the Great Song Academy headmaster and others, who were nearby and aware of the situation, shift slightly. They clearly remembered that when Mu Chen's mother had refined the Yellow Dragon Supreme, she had used a similar black tower. It was those same golden flames that had not only completely refined the Yellow Dragon Supreme's Dharmakaya, but had even turned its physical body to ashes. Though the golden flames on Mu Chen's golden dragon pattern were still minuscule and nowhere near comparable to his mother's, this didn't stop the headmaster of Taitsong Academy and the others from marveling at it. Headmaster Taitsong. Ling Shi's gaze turned solemn as she looked at the pagoda floating behind Mu Chen, her voice suddenly ringing out with authority. Hearing Ling Shi's command, the headmaster of Taitsong and the others raised their hands, and beams of light shot into the sky. The sky rippled, and a black light curtain quickly expanded, covering an area of several thousand meters in an instant. Darkness spread, and it felt as though the place had become isolated from the rest of the world. Ling Shi's face was serious as she waved her hand, sending the black chessboard soaring into the air. It spread out, casting beams of light that enveloped the mountain where Mu Chen stood, and under these lights, Taitsong Academy's headmaster and the others felt as though the mountain had vanished. Any traces of aura from it had been completely cut off. It was as if the mountain no longer existed in this vast world. As the black curtain and the chessboard were deployed, Mu Chen, who had his eyes tightly shut atop the mountain, suddenly opened them. His figure moved, soaring into the air. The divine soul holding the yin-yang disc quickly descended, following Mu Chen's spiritual essence back into his energy reservoir. As the divine soul returned to its position, Mu Chen immediately felt an immense surge of spiritual energy sweeping through his body like a tidal wave. This energy was no longer the black spiritual energy he had used before, but a blend of black and white, swirling together like two yin-yang fishes in a constant dance, a phenomenon both strange and powerful. This black and white spiritual energy was undeniably stronger than what he had used before. An indescribable sense of exhilaration spread through Mu Chen's body, and he could no longer hold it in. With a single step, Mu Chen floated in the void, arms outstretched, and let out a long, thunderous roar that reverberated across the heavens and earth. As his roar echoed, the spiritual energy emanating from his body surged rapidly. Mid-heaven reaching stage peak. Late heaven reaching stage. Late heaven reaching stage peak. As the spiritual energy surged higher, finally reaching the peak of the late heaven reaching stage, it gradually began to stabilize. Mu Chen's eyes shone brightly, his heart filled with excitement. He had only one more step to go before he could directly challenge the first of the 3 minor tribulations. He hadn't expected that this time he would leap past the mid-heaven reaching stage and directly reach the pinnacle of the 3 heavens stage. High in the sky, Mu Chen floated, feeling the tidal force of power within him. He couldn't help but grin. Indeed, the complete version of the Great Pagoda Art was incredible. In just over 2 months, it had allowed him to advance 2 levels, reaching the peak of the late heaven reaching stage. Now, Mu Chen was only 1 step away from confronting the first trial of the 3 minor tribulations. Once he overcame it, he would officially be on the path to the supreme stage. The supreme stage was the realm where one could truly be called a powerhouse in the great thousand worlds. Below the supreme stage, all were but ants. Mu Chen clenched his fists. Though he was still a ways off from the supreme stage, he believed that it wouldn't take long before he reached that level. Once he did, he would have the qualification to cultivate the supreme Dharmakaya. Mu Chen smiled faintly. The technique for cultivating the Great Sun indestructible body, which he had obtained from the Page of Seals, was already deeply ingrained in his mind. Although the Great Sun indestructible body wasn't listed among the top 99 supreme Dharmakayas, Mu Chen believed its power wouldn't be any weaker than those renowned Dharmakayas. After all, its advancement path led to the 4th rank's eternal undying body, a supreme Dharmakaya so powerful that even Earth Supremes and Heavenly Supremes would be moved by its potential. Mu Chen was eager to see how strong he would become if he ever succeeded in cultivating the eternal undying body. He thought that, by then, he would have the strength to rescue his mother from the mysterious clan. These thoughts flashed through Mu Chen's mind, but he soon calmed himself. There was no need to think that far ahead. Mu Chen smiled and looked up, his expression tinged with confusion as he gazed at the black shroud that enveloped the heavens and the earth. From within, he could feel some strange fluctuations. He realized that his perception could not extend beyond this barrier, and it felt as though he was trapped in a prison of darkness. Although shocked, Mu Chen didn't panic. This was the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. He didn't believe anyone would be targeting him here. Buzz. As Mu Chen scanned the surroundings, the black shroud quickly dissipated, and warm sunlight poured down. The black light faded completely in just a few breaths, and from within the darkness, a black chessboard shot out, landing in the delicate, jade-like hands of a slender figure nearby. Lingxi's beautiful eyes turned toward Mu Chen. Seeing that he was unharmed, she let out a relieved sigh. Mu Chen hurried over to Lingxi's side. He looked at her beautiful eyes, which now carried a hint of weariness, and paused for a moment before asking, "Sister Lingxi, what's going on? Do you think the Great Pagoda Art is easy to cultivate?" Lingxi chided. "If I hadn't shielded this entire space and temporarily isolated you here, that mysterious force from Aunt Jing's tribe would have noticed you by now." Mu Chen was taken aback, then immediately understood. A wave of guilt washed over him as he realized that while he had been absorbed in his own cultivation, he had unknowingly drained so much of Lingxi's energy. "Thank you, Sister Lingxi," Mu Chen said softly. "It's what Aunt Jing instructed me to do. Plus, I promised to protect you. If something happened to you, how would I explain it to Aunt Jing?" Lingxi smiled faintly. Then she looked toward the arriving Taisong Academy headmaster and the others, adding, "This time, it's also thanks to Headmaster Taisong and the others. Without their help, I probably wouldn't have been able to protect you alone." Mu Chen nodded respectfully to Headmaster Taisong and Elder Zhu Tian, who had arrived alongside her. "I truly appreciate the assistance of Headmaster and all the elders." Headmaster Taisong waved his hand with a smile. You're the one who's going to bring glory to our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Of course, we'll do everything we can to support you." He glanced at Mu Chen and nodded in satisfaction. With his keen eye, he could easily tell that Mu Chen's progress was exceptional. Though still at the late heaven-reaching stage, they all knew Mu Chen wasn't ordinary. Even in the early heaven-reaching stage, he had been capable of defeating Mo Xingtian. Now, his strength had surged to such an extent that even those who had passed the physical body tribulation would find it difficult to pose much of a threat to him. "Has Luo Li and Shun Songxing not yet come out of North Song Gate?" Mu Chen asked, glancing toward the deepest part of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. Luo Li and the others had been inside North Song Gate for nearly half a year now, and he wondered how they were doing. He hadn't seen Luo Li for so long, and he found himself missing that girl. Headmaster Tai Tsong nodded with a smile. "Don't worry. We've been keeping an eye on North Song Gate the whole time. We won't let anything happen to them. In fact, their progress over the past 6 months has been much faster than you might imagine. You'd better watch out when they come out." Shen Songxing specifically said that once they're out, the first thing they'll do is challenge you and suppress your momentum. Mu Chen smiled. Over the past half year, the first 3 months were spent cultivating the Thunder God body, and only in the last 2 months did he focus on refining his spiritual energy. Fortunately, with the help of the Great Pagoda Art, he made significant progress. However, he also understood that Luo Li, Shun Songxing, and Li Xiantong, who were within North Song Gate, may have advanced even more quickly than he had. Perhaps some of them had already begun to face the 3 minor tribulations. However, while Shun Songxing and the others had made rapid progress, Mu Chen was no slouch either. Though his strength at the peak of the late heaven-reaching stage wasn't extraordinary, he was confident that if he were to face someone who had passed the spiritual energy tribulation now, he could still stand his ground. Had he possessed this level of strength when facing Mo Xingtian half a year ago, Mo Xingtian would have never been able to corner him like that. Take it easy for these few days. The Spirit Academy Grand Competition is only about half a month away. By the way, this will also be the time for new student enrollment. After this, you'll no longer be considered a freshman, Headmaster Tai Tsong said with a smile. New student enrollment, huh? Mu Chen murmured, feeling a bit emotional. Without realizing it, he had already spent more than a year at the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, almost 2 years. Looking back, the changes had been significant. The Grand Song Academy headmaster once again conversed with Mu Chen for a while, then led Elder Zhu Tian and the others away. Ling Shi, how about going back to rest? You've worked hard these days, Mu Chen said, watching the departing Grand Song Academy headmaster and the others, then turning to Ling Shi with a smile. Ling Shi lazily stretched her long, slender arm. Her white dress wrapped around her delicate waist, making it seem as if it could be grasped with just one hand. Her chest was full and perky, and her perfect curves were extremely alluring. She glanced at Mu Chen and said, "What's this? Now that your training is done and I'm of no use, you're planning to cast me aside?" Mu Chen smiled awkwardly and quickly replied, "No way. I've been staying with you these days, Ling Shi." Ling Shi finally smiled warmly, swaying her waist as she turned towards the distant tranquil mountain peaks. Mu Chen then looked up at the azure sky, letting out a long sigh. With his training now complete, all that was left was to wait for the Spirit Academy Grand Competition to arrive. Over the next few days, Mu Chen relaxed. His strength had greatly increased, so there was no need to push himself too hard with training. After all, training requires balance. Overexertion doesn't bring much benefit. While waiting for Luo Li and the others to finish their seclusion, Mu Chen mostly stayed at the mountain where Ling Shi resided. He occasionally visited the freshman district to meet up with members of the Luo God Society. Those days were a rare period of leisure. Time passed quietly in this relaxed manner, and the Spirit Academy Grand Competition was drawing ever closer. In the peaceful and elegant courtyard, Mu Chen sat in front of the bamboo house. In front of him, Ling Shi kneeled before the tea table, elegantly pouring tea for herself. Her black hair cascaded down, and her slender waist swayed gently. Beneath her skirt, a pair of delicate jade feet peeked out, like 2 white jade pieces that gleamed alluringly in the sunlight. Ling Shi was usually cold and even guarded around others, but in front of Mu Chen, she shed all these facades. As a result, Mu Chen often had the privilege of feasting his eyes on such beauty. No matter his intent, it was hard not to admire the sight of such a stunning woman before him. And despite Ling Shi's lack of defense, Mu Chen did not try to hide his gaze. He openly admired her, though his eyes inevitably held a certain male desire. Ling Shi held the fragrant tea in her delicate hands and seemed to sense Mu Chen's gaze. Her face flushed slightly, and she hid her feet under her skirt, giving Mu Chen a playful glare. He, however, innocently shrugged, clearly indicating that it was her feet that had been exposed. Seeing his expression, Ling Shi snorted lightly. It seemed that Mu Chen had been too relaxed these days. Her face became stern, and she exuded a sense of authority. She coldly asked, "Any progress in your spirit array training during this time?" Mu Chen's head instantly ached. In the past 6 months, he had either been training his thunder god body or focused on cultivating his spiritual energy. There hadn't been any time to study spirit arrays.